Hello guys, welcome to my channel which is dedicated to problem gambling. During my gambling activity, which lasted more than 10 years, I lost thousands of dollars and many other much more precious things. And I would like to tell you all about it so that you look at gambling more seriously and start dealing with it while it's not too late. My personal story is a good example of how an innocent leisure gambling may evolve into a life-destroying experience. Today you will hear the first part of my personal story. The second, final part, which will be much more positive and promising, will come out in a few days. Since I don't want to make you bored looking at my lovely face, I will put a background video with views from some bridges in Vilnius, the city where I live. This will also help me to make my story sound better. Also, if you listen to it carefully, you will understand that those bridges have some special meaning. Just before I start, I would like to emphasize the importance of your cooperation. My aim is to make this channel a major source of information and support for anyone who wants to fight gambling addiction. And for this, I need your help to create useful content and spread word about this channel so that every person in need can easily find it. So please subscribe to the channel, like the videos, share them with others. Also leave your comments, suggest new topics, share your stories and advice. Thank you. And now let's move to the story. I hope you find it useful. So let's begin. At the age of 23, I finished my bachelor's in geography in Lithuania and started thinking of seeking further education abroad. Studying at some well-recognized foreign university had been an old dream of mine. I believed that getting international education would open doors to a bright future. Also, I wanted to see the world, learn different language, make interesting friends. So at that time I was young, healthy and full of ambitions. Life seemed to be just great. I had just obtained higher education, I had a loving girlfriend, I had my dreams and plans for the future. Back then I knew about gambling almost nothing. In my world it didn't exist. After some consideration with my girlfriend, we decided to get married and go to the United Kingdom to build our future. And so we did. Soon we created family and arrived in London full of dreams and expectations. We were attending English language school during the day and then were doing unskilled jobs until late at night. My wife in restaurants and me in various factories. We got up early and went to bed late. We were getting very tired, but our dreams of a bright future kept us going. After about 6 months, I made up my mind to seek master's degree in tourism planning at one of the UK universities. I was required £5,000 and to pass an English exam. So we decided to quit the language school and do more hours of work in order to save the money. And I was going to continue improving my English individually. I started working in London construction sites as a laborer 6-7 days per week, and during the break times and at home before going to bed, I was studying English. I had my goal and worked for it consistently and with high determination. It took us about a year and a half to save £10,000, 5,000 for me and 5,000 for my wife if one day she also decides to take up further education. To my great joy, I passed the English test with the first try. Then I gathered all the necessary documentations and sent my application to the university. After a while, I received a letter stating that I had been admitted. It was huge news for me. My old dream of studying at a good foreign university had finally come true. I was like in the seventh heaven and felt extremely proud of myself. Before starting the university, we decided to return to Lithuania for the whole summer to visit our loved ones and to share with them the joy of our success. So I came to Lithuania happy and relaxed with, with 3 months of holidays in front of me. After 2 years of hard physical work and continuous English studies in London, it seemed to me unbelievable. There was no need to rush anywhere, nothing to work on, true heaven. And it was a wonderful opportunity to return to my old passion of doing and watching sports. So most of the summer I spent playing soccer and basketball, watching sports competitions and reading sports news. One day, a few weeks before the end of the holidays, I was sitting bored at home watching sports and perhaps after seeing some gambling advertising was hit by the idea to make a bet so that watching sports became even more exciting. While living in England, I saw many betting shops and heard rumors that some people really win. So I thought, why not to bet a few pounds? Not a big deal, even if I lose them. After all, I deserve some fun after 2 years of hard work. For the first few days, I was making small bets online on various sports, placing up to £1 on each event just to see how all this gambling thing works. I won as much as I lost, and I thought that as a beginner I was doing quite well. If I dedicate more time to this, if I select what to bet on more carefully, perhaps I could even make some good money. Of course, for that I should place much more than just a pound. In those days, I was becoming a fan of Edinburgh Hearts Soccer Club in the Scottish Football Championship because several Lithuanians started playing for it. I was following all the club's news and the results of the preseason matches, and at the beginning of the season, I felt like a good expert of this team. When the championship began, the club won the first two matches quite easily, and it appeared to me that the team is much stronger than bookmakers think. So I thought I needed to use this factor and bet on this team as quickly as possible before their strength becomes clear to everybody. And I placed £500 on their win in the next match. The ratio was about 1 to 1, and to my great joy, they won quite easily again. So in less than 2 hours, I made £500. I was very excited, happy, and even proud of myself. I felt as if my winning wasn't by chance, but by my expertise. So trusting my insights, next weekend I bet on this team again. The only difference that this time I placed all the £1,000, and again my team won. I was overwhelmed by euphoria. I didn't have the patience to wait another week for their next match, so I started betting on other clubs and sports and did great for a few more days. I had already won over £2,000 and in just a bit more than a week. Then I wasn't able to gamble for a few days as we were visiting our big family. But during these days I felt very high and was thinking most of the time about gambling and the life opportunities that it may bring to me. I started dreaming about an easy, carefree life from gambling. I was thinking, if I can win £2,000 in a week, how much can I win in a month? And what if I dedicate more time to it? What if I bet bigger and more often? I would be able to provide good life, not only for myself and my family, but also for all my relatives and friends. and I could do many other great things. Besides, I would be able to do my studies in England with ease without having to work for living. And if, and so on and on and on. With all my heart, I was looking forward to gambling again. And as soon as the opportunity came, I did it. Only this time things didn't go that well. I experienced a streak of losses, and wishing to quickly recover the lost amount, I started placing bets on virtually anything, with almost no analysis. Basketball, handball, volleyball, rugby, and other sport teams I had never heard before. Soon I lost the previously won 2000s, but couldn't stop. I couldn't say goodbye to my recent dreams so easily. Also, I had been doing sports all my life and was extremely competitive and ambitious. I simply couldn't give up or accept the defeat without a serious fight. So I continued and soon lost a few £100 from our savings account. Of course, I got afraid my wife would find out about it, so I kept gambling in order to recuperate the loss as quickly as possible. However, the amount lost only got bigger, reaching £1,000. I remember those last days in Lithuania before our return to England. Most of the time we were sitting in the same room with our loved ones, doing the last talks, but in my thoughts I was far away, all in gambling. I was always with my laptop, checking results and placing new bets. My loved ones kept asking why I was being so sad and tense, and all the time on the computer. These were the first times when I had to come up with lies because of my gambling. And very soon such lies have become an inseparable part of my daily life. So instead of coming back to England, full of energy and happiness to enjoy my dream of studying at the local university, I came exhausted, sad and tensed, with one prevailing idea in my mind: to quickly win back the lost money so that my wife doesn't find out about and I can forget all this gambling experience as a bad dream and just enjoy my studies. So the very first day, as soon as I had a chance to use internet, I made another bet. This time I placed £1,000 on the English Premier League soccer team, which was a strong favorite, and this bet seemed to me as a sure winner. But to my heartbreaking disappointment, my team lost in the last minutes of the match, and so lost I. Now the financial hole that I had to cover up became even bigger. Now it was £2,000. After I paid my tuition fees of 5,000, we had just about 3,000 left. So the missing £2,000 that I lost was quite a big shortage. And this money, by our agreement, belonged to my wife. So of course, in order to quickly recuperate the lost money, I saw no other option as to continue gambling. The university was located in a beautiful sea resort in the south of England. The sea was just 5 minutes walk away from the house. The area was like a piece of paradise. Emerald color sea, sandy beaches, picturesque cliffs with pine trees, and lots of tranquility. What else a young student, a young family could crave for? Just go and enjoy the studies, the beautiful nature, make new friends. But my gambling addiction took this once-in-a-life opportunity away from me. I gambled more and more intensively. My wife saw me a few times quickly closing a gambling site when she was entering the room and inquired whether I was gambling. I admitted, but calmed her down that there was nothing to worry about, as it had happened just a few times and with little money. Also, I promised her to quit this activity, but I didn't. To my fortune or misfortune, my wife trusted me so much that she never asked me to show my bank account where we kept all our savings. So my gambling problem remained a secret for quite a long time, about a year. When my spouse finally found out that my bank account was empty, to my great surprise, she didn't kill me. Yes, she was sad and frustrated, but not as much as I would have expected. I think she didn't realize that those £5,000 that we had saved for her future studies had gone only because of my gambling activity. She thought that the majority of the money we had spent on our daily expenses. And of course, I helped her to think so. By that time, I had become very good at telling lies and hiding things. With tears in my eyes, I asked her forgiveness and swore that I would never ever gamble again. And she believed me. And at that moment, I believed myself too. But neither of us knew what a monster problem we were facing here. By that time, I had already become an addict, and my willpower was not enough to stop this. My mind was coming up with dozens of reasons and justifications for further gambling, and after a month or so, I came back to it. While during the first months at the university, I managed to remain more or less adequate, pursue my studies, and make friends. With the time, this became more and more difficult to maintain. My personality was changing rapidly. I was losing my self confidence and self respect, had constant feelings of guilt and shame, became irritated, confused, distracted, and closed. Soon I abandoned nearly all my contacts and was struggling with university tasks. Instead of following my old dream and enjoying the studies, I was only concerned about the money for another bet. I remember those anxious, torturous days when I would wait for my weekly salary from my part time job. And as soon as the money would reach my bank account, I would gamble them away. Then, full of sadness and fear to be disclosed, I would start waiting impatiently for the next payday. So again, 1 week of great tension, anxiety, and little sleep. And then the cycle would repeat. It's unbelievable and scary how just months ago healthy person and mind could become so ill and narrow. Just a year ago I was full of self-confidence and ambitions and thought of myself as of a responsible, reliable and mature person. But now there was nothing left of it. I became the opposite. Things didn't change even when my wife got pregnant and we were expecting our first child. Under other circumstances, it would have been the most beautiful times in my life so far. However, now the joy was mixed with a lot of pain. After the news, I obviously tried to quit my addictive behavior once again, but it didn't last long. A couple of months later, gambling took over me again, and with short periods of break when I was desperately trying to fight it, I gambled all the way up to the birth of the baby and beyond. Now I remember myself during those days with disgust. Actually, I can't believe it is truth and happened with me. Just imagine. I was present with my wife during the delivery, supporting her morally, calming her down, but once the process ended and I had to leave the hospital because of the night time, the very moment I came back home, I placed another bet. Now it may seem ridiculous, but back then it was a nightmare. Instead of spending every single moment with my beautiful newborn daughter and powerless wife, I was preoccupied with fucking gambling. At the same time, my studies were hanging by a thread. What was initially supposed to be a great pleasure and invaluable experience had become a tiresome burden, and I nearly failed them. Luckily, I was given additional 3 months to finish my dissertation, which again, for obvious reasons, I completed and handed in on the last day, actually on the last minutes. Even though I soon received my diploma, I wasn't too pleased. I imagined those studies way differently. Yes, I got the paper, but the opportunity of using the gigantic university resources, making friends and valuable contacts for the future was wasted. Not to mention all the distress and suffering that me and my wife had to undergo during this period. If someone had told me that such things are awaiting me, I would have just laughed into that person's face. Soon after my graduation, we moved back to Lithuania, without any savings, but at least with the diploma which opened many doors for me. It took me just a few weeks to find a very good job related directly to my education in tourism. I couldn't have asked for a better start. I was very excited and hoped to open a new chapter in my life. So I immediately stopped gambling and focused on work. And in the beginning, I was doing great. Enjoyed the job, the new people around me, the new daily routine. However, the more I got used to all this, the more I got relaxed and bored. Thoughts about gambling came back, and soon they were so frequent and strong that I was no longer able to resist them. I gambled once, twice, and shortly found myself fully immersed in my addictive behavior once again. I became nervous, irritated, lost my focus on other things. My work efficiency significantly dropped. I started arguing with my bosses and got eventually fired. But my diploma was doing miracles. Some weeks later, I was offered another, even more promising job. The position I got seemed more of a dream than a reality. Also, around the same time, the second child was born, this time a son. So now I had double motivation to quit gambling and get on with my life. And that's what I did for a while. Life gained stability both financially and morally. Came peace and quiet. Came back confidence in myself and my future. After about a year of abstinence, the problem of gambling seemed to be a thing of the past and no longer dangerous. One day, a friend of mine told me about the opportunity to make extra money from trading currency online. I wondered, why not to give it a try? After all, this is not gambling, this is economics, laws of finance. We started attending special courses and studied the thing, and weeks later I started trading. But my impulsivity and passion for risk took over me once again. My currency trading became gambling just in another form. I started losing my salary, and in order to hide this from my wife, I even took a few fast credits. At the time, both my wife and I were earning very well, and we could have lived a very decent, peaceful life. But because of my gambling and quickly rising debt, we could barely make ends meet. After some months, frustrated with currency trading, I came back to my old form of gambling, sports betting, which, with short breaks, continued for several more years. Sometimes I was winning £1,000, £2,000 a day, and had a chance to pay off the most oppressive debts and return to a calmer life, but I never did. The gambling passion was way stronger than a healthy mind, and I was quickly losing it all again and getting into even bigger debt. Instead of making a career and spending free time with my wife and little children, I was mainly preoccupied with gambling and was continuously forced to lie and hide things. I often felt sad, irritated, and angry with myself and the rest of the world. At some point, my self confidence and self esteem were completely gone. I became a weak, miserable creature that no longer could be called a man or even a human being. I became something terrible. My bigger family and friends no longer wanted to communicate with me. My wife no longer respected and trusted me. At home, we were passing by each other like strangers, like two cold icebergs in the cold ocean. She lived her life and I lived mine, and the only thing that united us was the roof under which we both lived, nothing more. I knew that our relationship, our family, was coming to an end. It was just a matter of time. And after another big loss, she asked me for divorce, saying that she's no longer able to forgive me and doesn't want to suffer anymore. I remember that evening very well. We sat down at the table at home for the final chat. We talked for hours and hours, remembering our beginning, our life in England, our mutual dreams. We both agreed that there was no chance anymore to be happy together, and being unhappy, we wouldn't be able to properly educate our children and teach them to be happy. We talked and we both cried bitterly. Tears were rolling down our cheeks, and the next morning I collected my personal belongings and left home. The loss of the family initially worked like a cold shower. Once I found myself all alone, I could see the horror of gambling consequences very clear and for a while was full of motivation to get rid of the addictive behavior. I wanted to prove to myself and everyone else that it was too early to write me off, that I can get back on my feet and live a happy life. This motivation lasted for about a couple of months. Living alone, I soon felt extremely lonely and unwanted. I used to sleep hugging one or another child, and now there was terrible emptiness. Thoughts about the lost family and opportunities didn't give me peace of mind. My sleep disrupted, tension rose, and I didn't even notice how I fell to gambling and got absorbed into it once again. Now that I lived alone, gambling became even more dangerous, as no one could see and control me. So I was able to gamble days and nights almost without eating and sleeping until I lost all my money. Then I would strain my brain for just one goal to quickly get some money so that I could continue gambling and win back what I lost. I took fast credits or contacted my friends and relatives with invented stories and asked for a loan. And as soon as I got some money, I gambled it away. As a result, I often didn't have anything to eat and had to starve for a few days until I could obtain some money again. After major losses and starvations often came suicidal thoughts. I visualized going to a nearby bridge and jumping into the river to make all this nightmare end. But each time I thought about it, I saw the faces of my children in front of me and realized that I had no right to traumatize them for the rest of their lives. Now, when I remember those days, I thank God and the circumstances that some time ago I and my ex wife had children. If not the kids, now I most probably would be at the bottom of the river. Living alone, I shortly lost my good job. Found another one, but soon lost it too. Getting a good job was becoming more and more difficult as I wasn't able to get recommendations from my previous employers and to explain to the potential employers why I was all the time changing such good jobs. And in a little country like Lithuania, where everybody knows each other, doors started to close for me. But I needed to earn my personal living, also pay alimony for my ex wife, and deal with my debts from fast credits. And with a regular job in Lithuania, this was hardly possible. The most realistic option seemed to be going abroad to some economically rich country and getting there any job. And once the situation is manageable, think what to do next. And so I did. I went back to England. By then, it had been 7 years since my studies in England, so I had forgotten a lot of my English and didn't feel confident about it. Besides, I had completely lost self confidence in general and even self esteem. For these reasons, I didn't even look for a serious job in England. I thought I had no chance to get it, so I took various unskilled jobs in factories and agriculture. I became a simple workman doing hard physical work for a minimum wage. I had to work and live with uneducated, rude, often even aggressive co-workers, whose past also raised many questions. Many of them had a criminal record, some were even hiding from law enforcement. Many were addicted to alcohol or drugs or had otherwise complicated personalities. I was the only one with a master's degree among those people, including the employers. So I pushed myself into the environment from which I wanted to escape as soon as possible, but I had no moral strength to do so. Gambling seemed the only way out. So after some pause, I came back to gambling and losing all my money. In such a way, I worked and gambled abroad for about 3 years. I didn't save anything, I didn't reduce my debts, I just became even more irritable and distressed. Also, what's most heartbreaking, I lost touch with my children. I saw them only once a year, so I practically didn't see them grow. I missed their birthdays, first days at school, and many other beautiful moments, which will never come back. I gradually became a stranger to them. On the other hand, during the time when I was living and working hard in England, after about 11 years since my first bet, something big happened that opened the door to a new life. After those events, I started crawling out of the gambling quagmire, quicksand, with a new, unprecedented force. And I will tell you all about it in the next video, which will be much brighter and positive.